Thank you, and welcome to today's Candidate Forum, brought to you by a partnership between City Club of Central Oregon and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan grassroots political organization encouraging informed and active participation in government. They never support or oppose any political party or candidate. Today, we bring you the Republican candidates for the 2nd Congressional District. My name is Mike Fisher, and I am honored to be the moderator for today's forum. By day, I am a business analyst. By night, I am a sportscaster, stage actor, MC, host of the Ultimate Oldie Show, and I also had the pleasure of being one of the originating members on the Bend 2030 Vision Task Force. First, I'd like to give a shout out to City Club's platinum sponsors, Brooks Resources and St. Charles Health Systems. Without their support and the support of our other annual sponsors, we would not be able to bring you today's live stream. City Club has been deeply disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic and its impact on public events. If you watch today and enjoy, please consider making a donation. To donate, please go to City Club's website at cityclubco.org. Today's live stream would not be possible without Hand in Hand Productions. City Club is proud to partner with Matt Hand as we venture into this brave new digital world. Thanks so much for all that you are doing for our community. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. We do apologize for the slight delay and are glad that you took the time to wait and become engaged in today's forum. Here are our primary candidates. We also want to express our gratitude for them for donating their time to this particular forum. Cliff Bentz, Knute Buehler, Glenn Carey, Jimmy Crumpacker, Travis Fager, Justin Livingston, and Jeff Smith. We appreciate the gravity of committing to run for this office. Our goal is to provide an opportunity for fair and civil discourse. Oregon's 2nd Congressional District is located in the eastern portion of our state. The district includes Baker, Crook, Deschutes, Gilliam, Grant, Harney, Hood River, Jackson, Jefferson, Klamath, Lake, Moher, Morrow, Sherman, Umatilla, Union, Wallowa, Wasco, and Wheeler counties, and a part of Josephine counties. We will start today's event with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and then each question is rotated, so each candidate will answer the question in a different sequence. We will also have yes and no, what we call rapid fire responses, where we're going to ask the candidate to limit their response to just either a yes or no or a numeric value. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer our more elaborate questions. At the end, each candidate may give a 2-minute closing statement in reverse order of the opening statements. With all that in mind, again, thank you for tuning in, and let's get started. First, we will offer our opening statements, and again, we will alternate in order. The overall order, to preface for our candidates, will be Glenn, Travis, Jimmy, Jeff, Justin, Knute, and Cliff. And again, it will be reversed in the closing statement. So let's get started with our opening statement. Glenn Carey, your 2 minutes start now.
I think is.
We will have Glenn up momentarily.
Aren't we supposed to start with Cliff? Isn't it Cliff, Mike?
No, actually, I have Cliff on the close.
Oh, sorry. Glenn is the one. I'm sorry. Glenn is the one that we're having issues with. I apologize, Mike. So could we move to Travis? Is that
Sure.
possible?
Let's go with Travis. Travis, your 2 minutes start now.
Good evening. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Matt, and everyone else on the panel. So I'm Travis Fager, new comer into politics. I've never had a foray into it. I consider myself a career commoner, not a career politician. That's not necessarily a dig on politicians, but I think a lot of people out there in this climate right now, they're becoming, they don't know if they have a high level of trust in politicians. So I want to make it real clear that there are those who are doing a great job and there are those who are susceptible in their performance. So I jumped into this race because I'm convicted. I'm very concerned with the trajectory of this nation. I'm been in Eastern Oregon, District 2 for over 4 decades. Been in Oregon for 45 plus years. raised out here on a ranch. So I started out on a ranch, started working on the farm with the cows and so forth, and worked all kinds of jobs up through college, put myself through college, got a degree in business administration, worked construction, firefighting, went commercial fishing when I was 16, left the farm, if you can imagine that, for a summer, and went and fished on southeast Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska for salmon for the summer. It was much better pay than farming, but I missed the farm. So anyway, graduated with a degree from EOU in business administration, moved down to Portland for about 5 years, worked in banking. I was a project manager for a data processing legal services company. Got recruited out of that and got into national sales and distribution. Moved back to District 2, LeGrand, and it was my bedroom community for several years while I flew around the country and did national sales and distribution product development, where I got acquainted with the realities of the import game. And it's not surprising how we're in a fix right now, because America's done a supreme job of outsourcing manufacturing because they need to go cheap. And it's cost us. This coronavirus has opened a lot of eyes and revealed a lot of issues that we're vulnerable in. So the reason I'm in this race, again, I'm very concerned primarily with what's coming out of Congress, some of the ideology, some of the thoughts and what is being spoken. So I'm concerned about liberty, and that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Travis. Jimmy, your 2 minutes start now.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to thank the City Club and the League of Women Voters. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm Jimmy Crumpacker. I'm a seventh generation Oregonian. My family originally settled down in Medford in the 1840s, and we've been fighting to make Oregon the best state in the union ever since. I left Oregon, went back to Georgetown University, where I studied government, and had the great honor of working for the Senator Gordon Smith as an intern. And I thought I was going to get right into politics right away. But a very smart woman told me, she said, politicians don't understand business. She said, you need to go into the business world and then come back to politics. So I worked on Wall Street for the last 18 years. And for the last 15, I've focused on the energy business. And I'm very proud of my work in that field. And although I was a small portion of it, the fact that we went in America from 5 million barrels of oil when I started in the business to now, we're producing in September 12.5 million barrels of oil. And we were actually energy independent for the first time in living memory, which will allow us a lot of latitude in foreign policy moving forward. The fact that we won't have to defend the Middle East and their oil anymore will give us the opportunity to pull back and really focus on America first, which is something that I think is critical. I'm not a politician. I've never run for office. But I'm coming at this with clear-eyed views and really with the strong backing of President Trump. And I also am a staunch defender of the Second Amendment. I am pro-life, and I'm very proud of the fact that Oregon Right to Life last year threw their weight behind my candidacy, which was a big deal. And I'm a strong defender of our borders. So thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Jimmy. And Jeff, your opening statement, please.
My name is Jeff Smith. I am running for Congress, and I want to thank all the people who are tuning in. It is one of the greatest rights and responsibilities of our country, the right to understand who you're voting for. And if you're tuning in and you're checking out what we have to say, I applaud you in that. And I applaud the fellow Republicans that are running against me. Tonight, there's two things that I want to do. The first is I want to give you hope that we can rebuild the middle class, not only in America, but specifically in Eastern, Central, and Southern Oregon. And secondly, I want to give you the bold vision that I have that will rebuild the middle class here in Eastern Oregon. And the things that we need to do are to get back to the things that we had been doing for generations. We had been logging for generations. My dad used to be a professional log faller. That has been taken away by the federal government. There's other things that are at risk also. We're at risk losing Social Security, Medicare. Both of those programs will run out of money within the next decade. We have high costs of medical care that is putting people in bankruptcy. We need to address the high cost of medical care. And finally, we need to educate our children better. And more, a high school education is falling behind the rest of the world. And we need to educate our kids so they can compete not only in America, but against the other countries across the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Justin, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Central Oregon City Club for hosting this. I look forward to the opportunity to let everyone know more about me and why I'm running to replace retiring Congressman Walden. I'm a native Oregonian, a small business owner, managing principal real estate broker, and Bentz City Councilor. My wife, Carey, and I recently celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary. In fact, it was on the day Governor Brown shut our state down. So I look forward to our dinner out when we're able to do that. We also have two amazing kids, a son that's 10 years old and a daughter that's 13. I'm running for Congress because I'm tired of the federal government overreach and excessive regulations. Whether it's Forest Service policies that choke our skies in the summer with smoke because of wildfires or regulations that increase the cost of doing business, like Obamacare, or federal permits local governments have to pay just to maintain their infrastructure, like the $500,000 worth of permits the city of Bend had to pay recently to the federal government just to repair an existing sewer line, which is a direct tax to sewer ratepayers. It's time to send someone to Washington, D.C. that is a true, principled conservative. After tonight, I believe it will be evident that I am that person to fill the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Knute, your 2 minutes start now.
Well, thank you, Mike, for moderating, and thank you to the League and the City Club and the other sponsors for putting on this event. And I appreciate all the viewers spending a portion of their evening with us. This race has been a wonderful experience for me, being able to initially travel this big and beautiful district and meeting all kinds of people, now talking to them on the phone through Zoom conferences, telephone town halls. But no matter where I am and who I'm talking to, I'm hearing over and over again that people are angry and frustrated, having their views and their values disrespected and ignored. And even to a certain extent, having their communities, their jobs, their way of life threatened by the powerful arm of big government. And that's why I'm running, to stand up and fight for the people and places that I've really called home for almost 2 decades, and to be that voice for people who all too often, in my opinion, who've been left out, left behind, and quite frankly, silenced by powerful interests in Portland and Washington, D.C. I have deep roots to rural Oregon. I grew up in Southern Oregon. I was one of 3 sons of a butcher and a homemaker who didn't even graduate from high school, but they stressed to me the importance of working hard, playing by the rules, and getting a really good education. I took them seriously and went to Oregon State University, then to medical school, where I met my wife, Patty. And ever since, we've been partners, 30 years being partners in everything we've done, raising kids, growing our medical practice, starting businesses, and now this political effort. And I would be honored to represent this district in Washington, D.C., and be your voice for the values and things that we know are dear to America and this district.
Thank you. Cliff, your opening statement, please.
Hello, can you guys see me?
Yes, we can hear you, Cliff.
Okay. Glenn Carey from Klamath Falls, and I have been representing men and women in the workplace for 42 years, and I've had a lot of experience in this. And the reason why I'm running is I believe that Oregon is the most beautiful spot in the world. It's the most beautiful place to live. And my message going forward is we have the hardest working people. We have the most intelligent people. We have the most natural resources. We have everything that you would ever want in a country. And I had the pleasure of going back to Washington, D.C. 3 times in the last year. I was in Olympia, Washington for their short session. I have been to Salem numerous times in their sessions. And the most condescending, elitist, just patronizing people that you could ever imagine. So it struck a fire in me, and I said, I'm not going to put up with it anymore. And I'm going to go back, and I'm going to represent my people. And I'm going to be staunch. And frankly, I'm going to be a little bit angry because we're not being represented properly. That's my biggest reason for running for Congress. I have been married for 38 years and 2 children, 1 grandchild, the love of my life. The little girl, she can't do anything wrong. I do everything I can to represent children. And one of the things that makes me angry also, in light of the current crisis, is nobody's talking to the children. Nobody's saying, hey, it's going to be okay. Hey, we're going to get through it. Hey, use your immune systems. Hey, everybody's talking about my life, my life, my life. So I guess I'm kind of an angry politician. People say, I'm not a politician. You are a politician. So if you say you're not a politician, you've already committed the first lie. And I stand strongly on that. And I don't have anything to be sorry for. And that's my platform. And thanks, everybody, for helping me. And thanks for the platform that I've been given. And that's my message.
Thank you, Glenn. I do see, is Cliff on the call? And if so, your opening statement.
Thank you so much. Yes, I am on the call.
Thank you.
I'm Cliff Bentz. I'm a lifelong, consistent, true conservative Republican. I'm a farmer, a former rancher, former legislator, a husband, and a father of 2 wonderful children. I've lived and worked in CD2 my entire life. My family has been in Eastern and Central Oregon for over 100 years, logging, ranching, and farming. I worked my way through college up in LeGrand and then through law school at Lewis and Clark in Portland. Came back to Ontario to practice law for the past 40 years. My wife and I live on a 110-acre farm 9 miles out of Ontario. I believe that life begins at the moment of conception. I support and have always supported the Second Amendment. I support lower taxes and less regulation. I believe in personal freedom, and I do not support mandates. I support President Trump. I think he's accomplished so many things that many thought impossible, and I believe he can and will help us here in rural Oregon. Shortly after his election, I had the great good fortune to be asked to help vet the president's most recent Oregon appointees to the Ninth Circuit and the U.S. District Court in Oregon. I believe that private property and the capitalistic system have been the foundation of American economic success. And I believe in the power of education and that it is transformative, and I'll do all I can to support it. I believe that each of us owes a duty to participate in our government. That duty starts with voting. I've voted in CD2 for the past 40 some odd years, and I vote in every election. And finally, I will always do what is right and best for the people I represent, even when it's dangerous, expensive, and filled with political risk. And I assure you, I know exactly what it's like to receive death threats and to have state troopers chasing me, because as a Republican senator, I stood up and walked out of the Oregon legislature to stop really bad climate and gun control bills from passing. I'm Cliff Bentz. I'm asking for your support so that I can go to Washington to help President Trump get America back to work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cliff, and thank you to all the candidates for their opening statements. Our first question will be a rapid response answer. What I ask from each of the candidates is they simply offer a numeric value to the following question, and I will try and get you in order. And again, the order will rotate as we sequence the question. But question number 1 is, how long have you been a resident in District 2? Cliff?
Mine, 68 years.
Thank you. Knute?
23 years.
Thank you. Glenn, how long have you been a resident in District 2?
60 years.
Thank you, Glenn. Jimmy?
One year. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you. Travis?
41 years. 41 years.
Great. Thank you. Justin?
20 years.
Great. And Jeff?
26 years.
Excellent. Thank you. And appreciate the brevity. Question number 2, we will be rotating and we will start with Knute. Question, do you support federal funding for Planned Parenthood and rights to privacy in healthcare decisions? Knute?
Yeah, I don't support public funding of Planned Parenthood at the federal level. I support the Hyde Amendment, meaning federal funds should not be used for abortion services. That is a state decided issue. I am pro-choice, but I'm certainly not pro-abortion. I think we should try to make abortion as rare as possible. So I would vote to pull federal funding of Planned Parenthood. I'd vote to end late-term abortions and also restrict the federal funding. And when I was in the Oregon legislature, I stood by those principles. I voted against Governor Brown's massive expansion of access to abortion, where essentially it made it free for everyone, even if you're not a citizen in this state. And I will vote the same way as a member of Congress to making abortion as rare as possible.
Thank you. Glenn, your response to that question?
No, I would not support anything with Planned Parenthood. What I would say to the people, what I would say to the audience, did you ever notice that people that are for abortion have already been born? So the sanctity of life. I mean, my dad was a Baptist minister, and I sat under his sermons Sunday after Sunday, Wednesday after Wednesday, revivals. And my dad always talked about life. And we have to focus back in the United States on life. So that would be my position on that.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. Jimmy, same question. Do you support federal funding for Planned Parenthood and rights to privacy in healthcare decisions?
Is this supposed to be a one-word answer?
No, this could be you got 90 seconds.
I didn't realize you were changing gears so quickly.
Yes.
Okay. I am staunchly pro-life. I believe that life starts at conception, and this is a value that I've had my entire life. You know, when I worked for Senator Gordon Smith nearly 20 years ago, these are the same values I hold now and hold very dear. And this is something that I think is non-negotiable. And I think that Oregon Right to Life, when they backed my candidacy last week, I think they saw that I had very strong credentials in this area. And I think I'll be a great advocate for the unborn. So thank you very much for the question. And I'm staunchly pro-life.
Thank you. Travis, your response to the question, please.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't support giving money to Planned Parenthood. I'd cut them off. I believe in the sanctity of life. And look, how we treat the unborn says everything about us. It says everything about us, how we treat the defenseless living unborn. And, you know, I believe, I'm a Christian. I believe we're all created in God's image. Indeed, life begins at conception, and it's his creation. And when we decide to offend that for whatever purposes an abortion occurs, I know there's varying instances. Some are tragic, but at the end of the day, what's a greater tragedy is the amount of lives that have been taken by abortion over multiple decades. We've actually decimated a whole society. A whole culture has never seen the light of day, and we've denied humanity the created gift that God puts in each life, their presence on this planet because of abortion. So I'm against it. I support the sanctity of life. And again, history is going to judge us, and eternity is going to judge us, how we treated the unborn. And we all need to be very sober about that.
Thank you. Justin, your response, please.
Great question. No, I would not support the federal funding of Planned Parenthood. I clearly support, support life. It's a very personal issue for me, and I support. Life begins at conception, and I believe that we absolutely need to protect the most vulnerable in our society, those that are unborn. And I would not support any funding for Planned Parenthood.
Great, thank you, Jeff.
No, I would not support that. I believe that human life starts at conception, and every human life is a gift from God. Our Declaration of Independence says that we have certain inalienable rights. And one of those rights was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I would not support anything that legalizes abortion. In fact, I would try to enforce the laws that are already in place that would ban any federal funds supporting abortion. And I would try to reverse Roe versus Wade so that we would not have a judicial fiat saying that women have a right to kill a baby that has never harmed them. I am just morally opposed to that. So I would not support any funding that would go towards abortion.
Thank you. And Cliff.
Thank you. So I don't support the funding for Planned Parenthood, and I would vote to end it. I am a right to life candidate, and you can go online and check out a more detailed statement of my position. I don't have much to add to that which has been said, other than I have two wonderful adopted children, and if their mothers had decided not, and truly the consequences of making the correct choice, and I'm every day thankful for it. I oppose abortion, and I am a right to life candidate.
Thank you. And thank you for your responses to the question. And again, each of these questions, 90-second limit. I'll alert you when the next question is either a yes or no or a rapid answer. We will begin the next question with Glenn's response. And here is the question. Can you address any philosophical and political realignments in recent years, such as on immigration policies, abortion, moderate versus conservative stances, or others?
Well, I think most people in the United States are moderates. They really are. We'll sway Republican, we'll sway Libertarian, we'll sway Democrat. We'll do different things on different positions. But I think the U.S. population is really moderate. They just want the things that's good for their jobs, the things that are good for their families. And I think if we go too far to the right, if we go too far to the left, then we alienate the common man. And that's what I want to do. I want to come in and say, hey, let's get back to center. Let's do what we're supposed to be doing. Let's believe in God, Muhammad. Whatever your religious preference is. But I think we can all get back to a common goal. And that's what I want to do. I want to get people back. So everybody's not fighting with each other. Everybody seems like they're fighting with each other right now. And it's just not a good way to go. And it's not good for the children. The children look, hey, grandpa's fighting with this guy, he's fighting with that guy. No, what I try to do is say, hey, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We're all going to be okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Glenn. I'm trying to keep it fairly tight for time because we do have so many candidates on it. So I do appreciate your response to that question. Jimmy, your response to that question, please. Any philosophical or political realignments in recent years?
That's a big question. I think that what we have seen is that the Republican Party has really been able to grasp the working person. President Trump taking on China, taking on this move to overseas to outsourcing factories and to outsourcing jobs is something that we haven't seen in a long time. And this used to always be the position of the unions and the Democrats. And I think that what we are seeing now is that the Republican Party is carrying the water for the working man and person. And I think that this is a great thing because at the end of the day, I really believe that this is a staunchly conservative country. The way that we protect our gun rights, the way that we fight for individual freedoms. Most countries in the world, the federal government has much more control over your day-to-day life, whereas I believe that the federal government should have as less control of your life as possible. And the expansion of the federal government is not a good thing. I have seen a big shift over the last few years. And I think that it's a good thing. I think that it's great that the Republican Party is fighting for the working man and working woman.
Thank you. Travis, your response?
No, I'll echo Jimmy on the Republican Party. I believe they've really stepped up. And I think it's that party, our party is resonating with a lot of people. The reality of it is we're ascending on Maslow's hierarchy of need. We started out with, the basic ingredients. We need shelter, food, and protection, and so forth. And this country has had the decadence of wealth and of industry and personal comforts and so forth. But the higher you get up on that hierarchy, you kind of lose your way, you kind of lose your spiritual way, you kind of lose your philosophical way. And I think we're in a season where we're discovering it's time for realignment. It's time to come back to conservative values. And it's one of my things I see. It's come back to self-reliance, come back to hard work, come back to honoring life, and then knowing that there's a creator out there we're going to answer to. It makes you treat other people the way you'd want to be treated. So coming back to the center is good. And I think we're at a window right now. And I think how we choose to go forward is going to dictate the destiny of this nation. And really, it's on the part of us Republicans and leaders and so forth. It's to really be evangelists of that reality, to invite people back to those traditional tenets that made this country great, and then make individuals disciplined and able to be a net benefit to humanity and themselves. So my philosophy is we're probably coming back to the center, and there's an awakening going on.
Great. Thank you. And Justin, your response, can you address any personal, philosophical, and political realignments in recent years?
Oh, personal.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the clarification, Mike, because I'm not sure that the question was entirely clear initially, or maybe some didn't understand it. No, I've always been a conservative. I was born in a conservative household. I was raised conservative, came from a small business family. And so we knew what it was like to have government intervention in our business. And so I've always had core values of being a conservative. I ran as a conservative for the Bentz City Council in 2016. I've governed as a conservative since then. And so my core values is conservatism, because I really believe in the individual rights of people. And the individual is the one that we need to be respecting as a government. And that's how I've approached my council role and my service on council, is to have those core principles at heart, but then also work with the other side to find common ground where we can, to be able to move forward a good agenda for all the people and all the individuals, not only the city of Bend, but in the larger congressional district. That's what I want to do when I get to Congress. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And Jeff, your response to the question?
No, I have not had a personal readjustment of my values, because my values are rooted in my faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. My values come from what Jesus proposed as far as for loving everybody and trying to be a servant of all. There have been certain issues that have become more and more to the forefront. I've spent the bulk of my life in manufacturing, and I saw jobs being exported to places like China and India, and it drove me nuts. And now, because of the pandemic that we're in and the coronavirus, it has become more and more evident how badly we have sold the American people down the tube because of exporting. We need to have government remedies so that it makes a whole lot more sense to keep those manufacturing jobs, not only in the United States, but hopefully in Oregon also. And so I am very pro-Trump in that he was the only one in the whole landscape that was running that had anything negative to say about China. And because of the current crisis, it becomes very evident that he was onto something. So I am very pro-Trump, and I want to bring jobs back to America.
Thank you. And Cliff, your response, please.
So I think I understand your question to be, have I had any personal philosophical, political realignments? Is that the question? I want to make
Yes,
sure
sir.
I got it.
Yeah, thank
Answer.
you. And I welcome your response, Cliff, if you can hear me.
I couldn't hear you. Maybe you could say
Oh,
that
sorry.
again.
Yeah, so I welcome your response now.
Okay. I'm sorry. Did I get
No
the
worries.
question right? That's my question.
Yes, you've got it correct. Yes.
There we go. Okay. So no, my personal philosophical political position is the same right now as it's been. I try to get smarter about each part of it, more educated about each part of my philosophical position. But you can go back and check. I've run for office 5 times for the House and once for the Oregon Senate. 6 races in the past 12 years. And I've been reelected by huge amounts of the vote. And of course, if I wasn't being consistent, I wouldn't have been reelected. And so the key is stick with your principles. Don't modify them. Be clear. If you have a good reason for changing something, you better explain it to the voters. No, I've been a conservative, a true conservative, a consistent conservative of my entire life. I don't plan on changing.
Great. Thank you. And Knute, your response to the question.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and thanks for the clarifications. No, I've lived and been a lawmaker according to the conservative values that have really made this nation the greatest nation on earth. Limited government, freedom, the rule of law, creating equality of opportunity. Those are the core values that this nation was founded on, and they're the values that I have believed in my entire life, and certainly guide me as a lawmaker in the legislature. And how that translates into action is I believe in limited government. That means to me keeping taxes and regulations limited and low, and I'll work with Trump and stand by Trump to balance our budget and put us on a much more fiscally conservative place. I believe in the Second Amendment. That is a core value of mine. And just like in the legislature, I voted against expanded background checks and red flag laws and assault weapon bans. I'll do the same in Congress. And finally, I believe in the rule of law. And I agree with Trump that we need to secure the border and we need to bring an end to illegal immigration. So those are how those conservative values translate into real policy and how I in Congress.
Great. Thank you. And we will move on to another question. And this one also will have a 90-second limit for response. The question is, what are the most important issues of the 2nd Congressional District that you would advocate as its representative? And we will begin this round with Jimmy.
I think the most critical issue for the 2nd Congressional District is land use. The fact that the federal government manages 53% of Oregon, which is 32 million acres, is something that is really choking the 2nd District. When I was a kid, there were nearly 85,000 timber workers. Now there are only 25,000. The timber business represented 8% of the GDP of the state of Oregon. Now it's less than 1%. And this is something that we need to get back to, because we used to produce 5 billion board feet of timber in Oregon. That number's gone down to as low as 2.5 billion board feet. And that's basically because the Clinton administration shut off those lands. We used to have 50% of our timber came from federal lands. Now it is down to 10%. And what you've seen with not managing these federal lands is massive forest fires. We have had forest fires that have taken 500 to 800,000 acres of timber every year, and that is a major concern. So not only are we not putting people to work in the forests, at the same time, we're also choking them with these forest fires. The air quality in Oregon is, over the last few years, can be considered some of the worst in the world. So I think that the federal government, being your representative, going back and fighting for your rights and talking and working with the Trump administration to get this solved is the most critical issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And Travis, your response, please.
Well, you know what? Here's the bottom line. We're going to be in a post-corona environment. So we're going to be in what I call the corona economy. And it's not going to be nice on District 2. None of this stuff is. And, we're going to need to roll up our sleeves and figure out how to get people's liquidity reestablished, get businesses opened and thriving again, get the economy up and running. I think it was USA Today. Over a 5-week period, they estimate we're going to have 26.5 million jobless claims, and all the jobs that were recovered since the Great Recession will be null and void, completely wiped out with this corona economy that we're now in, and we're going to have to deal with for a while. So, there's some secondary, tertiary issues. A healthy harvest plan is imperative. I was on a hotshot crew. I was a firefighter and other capacities. And I've personally been out on the fire line in District 2 and down in Central Oregon. And, timber is a naturally reoccurring resource. We need to take advantage of that. And we need to use common sense, be creative, and come up with a healthy harvest plan for the forest. And, the other thing, too, is the opioid epidemic. There's still a problem out here with prescription drug abuse, and it's decimating individuals. It's ruining lives. It's ruining families. Walden's done a good job on that. That needs to be continued and maybe take it to the next level. We also need to take care of the producers in District 2, ag, manufacturing. Look, here's a challenge. Here's the reality. Oregon is kind of making itself a place that's not a habitat for business. We need to reestablish Oregon as a habitat for business. And that includes dealing with this cap and trade deal. So those are some priorities. So.
Great, thank you. And Justin, same question, most important issues for the 2nd District that you will advocate as its representative?
Well, 6 weeks ago would have been a different answer, but today it's going to be rebuilding the economy. As the only currently elected official in this field, I'm actually working right now on how do we get our area back opened up. What are those protocols going to be? And then also we need to really focus on growing the economy again and rebuilding it. And we need to focus on pro-growth policies. That's going to include reducing regulations, maybe even some of them just temporarily, but we're going to need to be reducing regulations to get businesses back up and running as quickly as possible. And we need to support those businesses that the government has shut down. Forest management is another main issue that we're going to have to deal with. Thankfully, last summer was a pretty light year for forest fires, but the last couple, having lived here for 20 years, I've experienced how bad the smoke gets in Central Oregon. It's even worse in Southern Oregon, the Rogue Valley. I've heard stories throughout this campaign of people, particularly in the Rogue Valley, that have actually died because of the smoke that just sits in the valley. And those lung issues that people deal with, it's really impacting their lives. And so we really need to get back to work in the woods. We need to have better forest management policies, and we need to cut timber at a sustainable yield.
Great. Thank you, Justin. And Jeff, I welcome your response to the question.
My first priority would be to repeal the Endangered Species Act. In 1990, the northern spotted owl was listed on the U.S. Fish and Wildlife list as endangered, and within 5 years, we were down to about 2 to 3% of what we were cutting off the national forests. The only way that we are going to go back to harvesting off the national forest, and the county I live in, Union County, half of the county, 50% of the county is national forest. The only way we're going to go back to logging on national forests and BLM land is to repeal the Endangered Species Act. Secondly, Social Security and Medicare will be out of money within the next decade. We need to protect both of those programs. It is not right to have people pay into Social Security their whole life, and then when it's time for them to draw benefits, for them to not have any benefits. We need to have education that is focused on not simply telling kids that they have to go to college or they're a loser, but things like community colleges, trade schools. Our economy is starving for people who know trades, and I think that ought to be one of the emphasis. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Cliff, I welcome your response to the question.
Thank you. The one of the previous speakers mentioned the COVID crisis, and we're going to be dealing with that for a very long time. That's going to be front and foremost on our agenda. It will have to be. We won't have much choice. And one of the things that we absolutely, those of us interested in personal freedom, which sure we all are, but our personal freedom is being sacrificed up in the name of protecting our health. And this is a battle that those who are worried about vaccinations are fighting every day. But we're going to see it in spades soon. And I'm reminded of my father, who years ago took the swine flu shot. I don't know if you remember, a long time ago, and he came down with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and that was a direct result of a rush to vaccination. And I see that coming, and it was hugely damaging to him. He almost lost his life. So our personal freedoms are going to be taken during this space that we're looking at, and we're going to have to fight and fight and fight to get them back. Of course, we need to do something about getting back into the forest. Of course, we need to do something about water, more storage of it. Of course, we need to do something about the Endangered Species Act. Getting it repealed is going to be hugely challenging. Of course, we need to protect Social Security and Medicare. All those issues are huge for CD2, and I look forward to working on them.
Great. Thank you. And Knute, I welcome your response.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just a few weeks ago, this answer would be very different, but with the severe changes to our society from the coronavirus epidemic, that is going to be job one of everyone in Congress, probably for the next couple of years. Look, we've sustained a severe demand shock to our economy caused by a healthcare crisis. That has to be solved. That's job one. Then we need to make sure that we do that constituent service, that important role that we all should play as lawmakers, that we represent people, be it with their difficulties with the Small Business Administration getting loans, their difficulties with getting Medicaid and Medicare and health services, or recovering their businesses. And I anticipate that will take a large amount of time. And then importantly, once we get through this immediate crisis, we need to review what happened, and specifically, in my opinion, hold China accountable for this virus, this global pandemic. It's clear to me that the Chinese Communist government hid important information. The virus may have come from one of their labs in Wuhan, and we need to have a full and thorough investigation of their role in this virus and hold them accountable. Those will be the types of issues that I expect to focus my attention.
Great, thank you. And finally, Glenn, the most important issues for the 2nd Congressional District that you would advocate as its representative?
Well, as being a representative of the people for 42 years, my main goal, my main focus is let's focus on the people. Let's focus on the children. Let's tell them that everything's all right. You can do it. Everybody should run for Congress. Everybody should run for county commissioner. Everybody should believe in their state. The most beautiful place in the whole world is Oregon. And never be afraid to stand up for your state and stand up for your country. But my main thing is, right now, let's tell these children everything's going to be okay. We're going to tell the adults that you can do it. You can get out of situations that you're in. Work hard. Be proud. You're from Oregon. Let's do this. That's what you want to do when you're a representative. The issues, we'll talk about the issues later. If you don't have a majority, issues aren't even going to really matter. You can advocate for them, stand up for them, push for them. That's what I'm going to do. But right now, it's about the people. And that's my message.
Great. Thank you, Glenn. And that responses for question number 4. Question number 5 will be a yes or no response. I know there might be the temptation to expand, but please, if you can limit your response to yes or no. And we will start with Travis on the response to this question. Oregon is one of only 5 states in the United States to allow unlimited campaign contributions. Do you support this?
No.
Great. Thank you. Justin?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes.
Knute?
Yes.
Glenn?
No, I do not. I believe that.
Thank you. I just need it limited to yes or no to keep.
Okay,
so we
got
keep
it.
time, but thank you.
All right.
Jimmy?
I'm out.
Jimmy?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Thank you. And that, for just that question only. Now, this next question will have a 90-second limit, and we will begin with Justin on the response. As we navigate the current pandemic, what will you do in Congress to address the cost and access of medical care? One example, price gouging and anti-competitive practices of the pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah, so I think we have a world-class healthcare system. Where we have problems is actually in our health insurance system, and it's not very good. And that's where we need to focus on. One of the unfortunate things that Obamacare did is it put a lot of mandates into the system in what health insurance carriers have to cover. And it's people should be able to get down to just catastrophic care if they want that, if that's what fits their lifestyle. Being on the younger side of this group, for me, a more catastrophic type policy is more appropriate. But as I get older and, a different policy might make more sense. I'm actually in the private market as an independent contractor and small business owner. I actually buy my insurance on the private exchanges. And I don't think once, from year to year since Obamacare came in, I've actually been able to keep the same policy. Each year it's been different. Each time carriers have left and come back into Deschutes County. And getting those, we need to have more competition. There needs to be less regulations. We need to be able to buy policies across state lines as well. And so those are the ways that I think we can address the cost of healthcare. And then we also need to address the cost drivers as well. But looks like I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Jeff, your response to the question with regard to cost and access of medical care.
The reason why the cost of medical care is going up at over twice the rate of inflation is because we have a huge supply and demand problem. We have a huge demand for various medical services that we get every day. And the supply, namely doctors, nurses, various other health providers, physical therapists, things like that, there's way too few of them. We need to be tripling the number of doctors and the number of nurses that we graduate every year. In Oregon, there is only one place you can become a medical doctor. That's OHSU in Portland. We need to be graduating 3 times the number of people that become doctors and nurses. On top of that, we have trouble with our prescription drugs. Our prescription drugs, they can re-up the patents on them for making virtually no changes whatsoever. We need to address the way that our designer drugs, our prescription drugs are patented, and make it so that the price of the drugs would drop a lot more quickly.
Great, thank you. And Cliff, your response to that question.
Well, thank you. Just a checklist of things that we should be doing. Everybody should be paying something. There are situations where people go to the doctor knowing they don't have to pay anything and thus go more frequently than probably is necessary. We need to, the last idea that is a really good one. We need to double the number of providers, triple the number of mid-level providers. And we must do this for all kinds of reasons, but that would be of some help. We need to, of course, address and drive down costs. How we do it, extraordinarily difficult. The CCO approach here in Oregon, I thought, was flawed from the start. It was like sending all the foxes into the hen house to collect the eggs. It's not working the way it should be. Needs a lot more fine tuning. And of course, we need to do everything we can to increase competition. And it's easily said and very difficult to do. But we need more competition. And as I said before in other debates on this issue, this is a $3 trillion challenge. So how we go about it is multifaceted, to say the least. But I guarantee you that should I end up in Congress, and I hope I do, this will be one of the primary focuses of my attention, because we're not going to have any choice.
Great, thank you. Knute, your response, please.
Yeah, I believe that make healthcare more affordable through using technology and using market forces, and it needs to be a high priority. And I'll vote for more affordable health insurance, prescription drug coverage. I'm absolutely against a Bernie Sanders Medicare for all type approach. I've seen firsthand the dangers of socialized medicine. It means long waiting times. It means death panels. It means people don't get adequate services. And being in the healthcare profession, I've seen firsthand how overburdensome the regulations are. Look, we couldn't even do telehealth effectively until the coronavirus epidemic, because of the burdensome regulations that the federal government has placed on medical providers. And look, just with a one bill, Trump has changed that. And medicine, I think, will forever be improved by that kind of deregulation that has come forth in just the last several months. I think that will be a huge benefit of this whole challenge with the coronavirus epidemic. And basically, the bottom line, the cost drivers have to be changed. We have to pay to keep people healthy and not pay for sick care.
Great, thank you. And Glenn, I welcome your response to the question with regard to addressing the cost and access of medical care.
Well, it's being involved in unionism for a long time. Everything's volunteer, right? So I think that providers could actually be more of a volunteer. Somebody's sick in their home, they come in, they can check out some symptoms. It's all totally free. That will drive down the cost. I also think that people need to know that, hey, I'm going to use my immune system. Let's use our immune systems. Like I said, there are people that are compromised, but the healthy people, use your immune systems. You're strong. You're going to be fine. You're going to get through it. And I think that will drive down the cost. And, tell the children and tell them that, hey, you've got fresh air. You live in the most beautiful part of the whole world, and use it to your advantage, and we'll get through it, and we're strong. And I think that's one of the messages that's not even being said. And that's my position on our latest crisis.
Thank you. Jimmy, your response, please.
Thank you. Yes, this is a serious issue, as the others have pointed out, a $3 trillion market. And it's something that I think if we were able to cut down on a lot of the red tape and be able to go across state lines and to get your insurance would be a huge help. Obviously, more doctors would help. More competition is always something I believe in. I'm a free market person when it comes right down to it. And I think one issue that has not been discussed, which I think is critical, is tort reform. I think that the amount of money that is paid to lawyers and which really drives up the price of insurance, and it's a real burden for a lot of doctors in a lot of different areas. And so it would be something that I would definitely fight for in Congress, is to cut back on the amount of lawsuits that I think are that are never ending, and it's really driving up the cost not only in healthcare but in other areas of our economy. And I think if we were able to rein in these massive lawsuits, then it would really drive down the price of insurance and make it much cheaper for everyone. So thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. And thanks for your patience. Travis.
These are all good points. When I'm elected to Congress, I'm going to call each of these guys and put them on my advisory board. So, hey, right out of the gate, look, I think we're headed to a crescendo. Here's the challenge. We've got the boomer generation is coming up. Their medical needs are going to increase. Look, we have an unhealthy population out there. People are eating way too much sugar, getting way too many calories. There's more ingredients in food out of the box at the supermarket than there was, 30 years ago. We're not eating natural foods, and we are creating a health crisis if you reverse engineer it, we're creating a health crisis one spoonful at a time, okay? That's just one side of it. This is an enterprise-wide issue. Everything that was commented, I agree. We do need to categorically drill down, reduce costs. We need to shorten the path from education to actually serving in the medical field in a variety of capacities. I know it's very hard to get into medical school. I've got friends that are trying to get in and have gone through it and so forth. And I applaud that industry. And hats off right now to all those in the medical field. They've been the first responders of this virus. So this has been a wake-up call to how important they are and how we need to go ahead and continue to bolster that industry. So, there's big pharma, there's big medicine. My family went through a cancer crisis in our 30s. Between my poor wife went through a colon cancer in her mid-30s. So I know all about the expenses, and we, by the grace of God, we survived it, but our finances really took a hit. And so that needs to change. We need to make healthcare affordable. We need to make it more expedient for people to get access to.
Great, thank you. And the next 3 questions will be yes or no responses. So we will begin, again, I will call out in order, and I ask that you just offer a yes or no response. And here is the question. Is our present electoral college system the best way to determine the president of our country? Jeff?
Yes.
Cliff?
Yes.
Knute?
Yes.
Glenn?
Yes.
Jimmy?
Yes.
Travis?
Yes.
And Justin?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And the next question is also a yes or no response. Would you support a national vote by mail act? Cliff?
No.
Knute?
No, I think that's up to the states.
Glenn?
No.
Jimmy?
No.
Travis?
No.
Justin?
No.
And Jeff?
No.
Thank you. And this next question is also a yes or no response, and it's with regard to passing sensible gun laws that affect the Second Amendment. Do you support universal background checks and red flag laws? Knute?
No.
Glenn?
No.
Jimmy?
No.
Travis?
No.
Jeff?
Hell no.
Justin?
No.
And Cliff?
No. And my previous answer was no also. I was not sure you got that.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the clarity. And our final question before we move on to closing statements for all our candidates, and this one will have a 90-second limit. How do you vision the future of central and Eastern Oregon. How do you envision the future of Central and Eastern Oregon? Glenn?
Well, what I want to see is people holding their head up high, and they're saying that we live in the most beautiful spot in the whole world, and we're the hardest working, we're the most intelligent, we're farming, we're logging, we're railroading, we're working in the grocery stores, we're pumping gas, we're washing cars, we're doing everything we can. And then if somebody from the East Coast comes back, because I had this happen to me, and they said, well, Oregon, yeah, you guys are, just a bunch of bubbas. And I said, no, we're the best in the whole world. And if I can coach people up and I can get them to holding their head high and believing that they're the most proud, then, we can solve a lot of things. We can solve drug addiction. We can solve alcoholism. We can solve unemployment. We can solve child abuse. You just got to get people proud of who you are, where you're from, and be proud. And that's what I want to do. I want to coach people to be proud of Oregon. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Jimmy, same question. How do you envision the future of Central and Eastern Oregon?
Well, I think it's critical to provide opportunities. And I think opportunities are there for the taking. You don't have to look far at the timber mills that they're running one shift, 8-hour shift. They should be running 3. And in some counties, they had 5 timber mills, and now they're none. And I think that along with providing jobs, what that does is it provides a tax base for the schools. And we need to get back to having the best public education system that we had when I was a kid. It's embarrassing that we have the second worst high school graduation rate in the country. And jobs provide that tax base, which will lift the schools, and it will also address the opioid issue, because idle hands are the devil's work. And when people don't have opportunity and they don't have jobs, that's when they turn to these terrible addictions. And so I think if you can get back to Congress and you can fight to open up a lot of the federally managed land, you will provide a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities. And it's also critical to have water management. We need to have proper water management. We need to protect our dams. This talk of bringing down dams doesn't make any sense to me, because we need to really put our farmers first as far as water priorities are concerned. So the number one thing that I envision for this district is providing as many jobs as possible, because we have to provide opportunities, and those opportunities will then make the rest of the economy blossom, and it will help across all sectors, including education, including opioids. And so that's really what I envision for this district. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And Travis, your response to the question, please.
Yeah, no, I'd like to see the atmosphere shift from being one of dread for liberty and business. Look, Oregon, Central Habitat for Good Recreation Access. And, again, come back to the Habitat of Hope. So many people right now, they're just, they see regulations. Oh, no. My internet connection says it's unstable. Sorry. People want to feel like Oregon is a good place to be until they retire. And I know a lot of people right now who are in business and working, of course. The progression in Oregon is driving people out. And the people who are staying, it's driving them into despair. So we do need an atmospheric change in Eastern Oregon and Central Oregon. And I see the vision in the future is creating, again, a much better place by virtue of the policies, by virtue of the activities that we put together through creativity to make it a better place for business, a better place to build your life. So that's my opinion.
Great, thank you. And Justin, your response. How do you envision the future of Central and Eastern Oregon?
Yeah, my vision for the 2nd Congressional District would be one that is prosperous, not one that has been decimated by federal regulations, one that's self-governed. The people have the right to self-government. And the way you do that is through local city councils, county commissions, other boards and taxing districts. That is really where solutions come from, is at the local level. And I want to support those resolutions and those solutions that the local governments have with the federal government. The federal government should not be coming in. We don't need bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. telling us how to live. Each area of the 2nd Congressional District is very, very different. Bend is very different from Medford, from Hood River, Klamath Falls, LeGrand. All the areas are very different, and they have the right to self-government, and they should be the ones that are choosing how their regions are actually prospering and what their regions look like, not somebody in Washington, D.C. And what I would do is I would support those regional solutions with the backing of the federal government, not coming in and telling people how they should live their lives.
Great, thank you. And Jeff, your response, please.
My vision for the 2nd Congressional District can be summed up in one word: freedom. The freedom to create the life that you want to have for yourself. When I graduated from Elgin High School in the early 80s, Elgin had around 200 people in the high school. Now they have half that. There was several mom and pop operations, logging operations. Between Union and Wallowa County, the next county over, there was 11 different sawmills. All of those things are gone. The people who used to live there, their choices were severely taken away from them by the federal government. And my vision is that to give those people back the choices that they used to have. I believe that this will result in economic opportunity, and I feel like the people of our district will rise to the occasion. They will create those jobs. They simply need the opportunity that has been being taken away from them by the federal government. I plan on giving them back that freedom.
Thank you. And Cliff, your vision for the future of Central and Eastern Oregon.
Thank you. So the most important thing is that all of our businesses and folks are recovered from this COVID virus. That'll be the most important thing for our future and get us back to at least where we were 3 months ago. Of course, we want to have more water stored and available to everybody. Of course, we want to get back into the woods and reduce the dramatic, crazy amount of risk that people in cities surrounded by forests are taking. We want to take, I hope in this future, full advantage of the President's $2 trillion infrastructure bill that he's going to pass and have that money come to Eastern and Central and Southern Oregon so that that money is spent on solving problems that to this point have been intractable. And I'm talking about the Klamath water situation, which my vision would include resolving so that the water is there and certain for folks, not only there, but up on the Columbia system. And of course, in and around Prineville, Madras, the spotted frog issue resolved, the sage grouse issue resolved, the spotted owl issue resolved, and us all working and taking full advantage of the assets that we are surrounded by. That's a part of my vision for the future of Eastern, Central, Southern, and of course, Northeastern Oregon.
Great, thank you. And finally, Knute, your vision for the future of Central and Eastern Oregon.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic for the entire district for a very simple reason. The world strongly desires a lot of the products that this district can produce if the federal government would just get out of the way with the burdensome regulations that have developed over the last several decades. And what I mean by that is the world is hungry for healthy, high-quality food that our ranchers and farmers can produce unlike anywhere else in the entire country. The world is hungry for innovative new wood products like mass timber buildings, and there's nowhere better in the world to produce that than our mills and our mill workers here. And even the world is hungry for clean energy sources like natural gas. And if you just allow the LNG terminal go into Coos Bay and build the pipeline through the the district. It'd provide lots of not only construction jobs, but ongoing support jobs and a resource that we could restart manufacturing. So I am incredibly optimistic. What it's going to take is leadership. It's going to take a priority on turning back some of the regulations that have developed over the long term and allow people to get back to work and support these traditional jobs in ranching, farming, and in timber.
Great. Thank you. And thank you to all the candidates for their patience and for their responses to the questions that we had today. We will now commence with closing statements. Each of the candidates will have 2 minutes for their closing statements, and we will begin with Cliff.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Years ago, 12 years ago, I was sent to Salem to represent a great big part of CD2. And I defended in those years our water and our property and our Second Amendment rights from constant attack. I brought back funding for roads and bridges and sage-grouse recovery and water storage and improvement projects. I helped write exemptions for ranchers and farmers into the Oregon estate tax law so that they could actually pass their ranches and farms down to their kids, pass bills to raise speed limits on Eastern Oregon's freeway and state highways. And I stood up again and again and again for Oregonians' right to life. As your congressman, my first job would be to help the president in his efforts to keep America safe, recover from this virus, and get back to work. My first bill would be to help the president, because he's going to have to lead the way, cut through the massive federal regulation and get us back working in the woods instead of watching them burn up. My second bill, would balance the implementation of the Endangered Species Act to free up water for farmers and ranchers. Over the years, I've become a friend and admirer of Greg Walden. I would build on his absolutely excellent legacy. I would always uphold our Constitution. I'd always defend my friends, my families, my community, my people, and my district. I'll always do what I believe is right, like last year when I stepped up to stop cap and trade. By electing me, you would be sending one of your own to Washington, D.C., and one who has the scars to prove he can and will do whatever it takes to fight for you, for our way of life, and for the values that we hold so dear. I'm Cliff Bentz. I'm asking for your vote for Congress, and thank you so much for this opportunity this evening.
Thank you, Cliff. And Glenn, your closing statement, please.
Well, my closing statement, and I've listened to a lot of the responses, I think one of the first things that we need to do as Americans, let's refer to our president as President Trump. His name's not Trump. He's our president. One of the things that I would focus on from 1 to 100 with our youth, with our elderly, is you can do it. Don't let anybody try to take you down. Don't let anybody tell you you're wrong. You can do it. And let's get motivated. Let's get back in here. Let's be the most proudest citizens of the whole union. And that's what I want to do. The issues, they're always going to be there. I mean, yeah, we know about water. We know about timber. We know about the spotted owl. We know about, hydroelectric dams. We know about all. The people are hungry for motivation. They want to be built up. That's what I want to do. I want to tell them how great they are and, build them up, start building them up. And then they feel better about themselves. Then they become civically active. They do better in school. If they're children, they do better at their job because they're proud. They have a leader, somebody that is actually representing them. That's what it is about. It's the House of Representatives. Represent your people. That's my message. I don't need the full 2 minutes. You guys have heard me, for the whole interview. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to build the people up first. Build them up. Once you get them built up, then you've got the support. And then you can represent your people.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Glenn. Okay. I appreciate it. And Knute, your closing statement, please.
Yeah, well, thanks for hosting this evening. I think it's been informative. Look, no one in this race has battled Kate Brown and the liberal establishment in this state harder than I have. And I have some political scars to show for it, certainly. In the legislature, I pushed back against $13 billion in tax increases that Governor Brown tried to pass. I pushed back against burdensome regulations like cap and trade, and I fought for upholding our Second Amendment rights. And I'll do the same thing in Washington, D.C., taking that same kind of fight to Nancy Pelosi and the radical left in our House of Representatives. I'll fight against such things as open borders, Green New Deal, and Medicare for all. And I think you saw tonight that we have a lot in common here, a lot of conservative views. We all support the president and his policies, border security, Second Amendment rights. But there is one person here who is very different. Mr. Crumpacker has never lived, worked, paid taxes, voted, even volunteered in this district. And I personally think that makes a big difference. Look, I've led that battle while he was in New York and Portland and had millions and millions of dollars spent against me to defeat me. But you know what? I'm still here. I'm still fighting for what I believe in. It'd be my honor to go to Washington, D.C. and represent the great people of Oregon Congressional District 2. Thanks a lot. I appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you. And Justin, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. Based on what we've heard tonight, I think it's evident that I am the most conservative candidate and the best person to fill the shoes of Congressman Walden. When elected to represent you in Washington, D.C., I will focus on and fight for rebuilding our economy with pro-growth strategies, reducing regulations, improving forest management, and getting people back to work in the woods, protecting and advancing our Second Amendment rights by advocating for nationwide concealed carry reciprocity, serving our veterans and active duty military, also expanding the mission at Kingsley Field. That is a key asset for the state of Oregon and for the United States Air Force, and we need to support that mission and make it the most modern base for training United States Air Force pilots there is in the nation. Protecting the lives of individuals and protecting the lives and individual rights of all people, born and unborn. Again, thank you very much to the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County and the Central Oregon City Club for hosting us. I ask everybody for your vote, and to find out more about me, please visit livingstonforcongress.com, and it's Livingston, the number 4, Congress.com. Thank you and have a great evening.
Thank you. And Jeff, your closing statement, please.
Several years ago, I was trying to build a aerospace manufacturing firm in Elgin, Oregon. Elgin is a small town. It's the town where I grew up. It's 20 miles north of La Grande. To do that, to build this business from the ground up, I had to buy land. I had to build a building. I had to purchase equipment. Some of it was on the East Coast, have that equipment shipped to my building that I was building and install it and start producing parts. While I was in the middle of all of that, I also had a wife that was pregnant with twin daughters, and they were delivered early, 2 months early, and I was trying to build a building during the week and then going to Portland on the weekends to see my wife and my daughters that were in intensive care. I was absolutely at my wit's end. And my dad was telling my uncle about all of this. My uncle had used to be in the Navy. He was in World War II. He had seen things like kamikazes attack his ship. He had seen things like the ship right next to his torpedoed and sunk. And he told my dad something that really encouraged me. He said, if we don't try, you'll never accomplish anything. And so that is my promise to you. I will try. I took that that word of encouragement from my uncle. I built that building. I installed those machines. I started making aerospace parts. And this year, my daughters will graduate from high school. If you send me to Washington, I will try every day to protect your freedom and to do the things that will help you. Please vote for Jeff Smith. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And Jimmy, your closing statement, please.
Well, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed the conversation tonight, and thank you for moderating. I want to thank the City Club and the League of Women Voters. This has been a great discussion. And since my opponent Knute brought me up, I think I need to respond to that. And I realize that he thinks that I'm the biggest threat to him in this race, and he is spent $20 million on his name ID, and so everyone knows who he is. And the reality is, and these are in his own words, he did not vote for President Trump. I did vote for President Trump. He is pro-choice. I am pro-life. Knute did not support Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. It was very clear that he made that in the governor's race. If you cannot support Brett Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court, the reality of the situation is, are you a true conservative? This is an incredibly important race. The 2nd District hasn't had the opportunity to elect someone new in 22 years. We need a strong conservative that can work with President Trump, that has supported President Trump since he ran in 2016. I believe I'm that person, and I want your vote. And I hope that you will do your research into what Knute has said, because I am a true conservative, and I don't believe he is. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jimmy. And finally, Travis, your closing statement, please.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's an honor to be in this race. I'm a full-time general manager of a radio station right now, so I'm a working candidate. I don't have a big team, but I have a big heart, and I love God. I love this country, and I love the people of this country of all kinds and types. And, you know, I ask the voters, carefully elect, because we're in a critical hour in this nation. I believe if Paul Revere was here, he'd say saddle that horse, because liberty is in peril, and the people have to wake up. And look, here's the deal. You cannot outsource the management of our freedoms. And I think citizens have become remiss in their responsibility to engage the process of having this platform of freedom that we enjoy. There's nothing like it on the planet. And it was given to us. It was blood bought. It was purchased. We're trust fund babies of liberty, okay? We've inherited something that we truly, maybe individually, don't fully appreciate how expensive it was to get what we have right now. And who we send into the wheelhouse, be it Congress. So, you know, look, Congress is their board of directors for this country. They have a responsibility to make sure that they are covering every facet to make this country strong, secure, has a vision for the future, taking care of their constituents. Voters, heartfelt, okay? Who knows who's going to go down and represent this country, but they better have the right intentions. They better have the right heart, the right spirit, because again, we're at a critical hour. We're in a critical window. And again, I just come back to, we need that course correction in Congress. We've migrated away from liberties. We need to come back to the core values. We need to come back to hard work, self-reliance, and honoring the sanctity of life, and honoring our Creator, and restore the trust in this process. Part of the lack of trust is why we have the lack of involvement. Not many people vote. So I hope to get people off the couch. I got off the couch and got in the race. You can't change the world sitting there looking at the TV yelling at it. So I just invite voters to come out and consider carefully. I'm not going to beg for your vote, but I'm going to ask you to be wise about who you send to Congress in CD2. Thank you for listening to me, and God bless every one of you.
Thank you. And thank you to Cliff Bentz, Knute Buehler, Glenn Carey, Jimmy Crumpacker, Travis Fager, Justin Livingston, and Jeff Smith for participating in today's forum. And thanks to the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County for partnering with City Club to get this information out. Remember, if you enjoyed today's forum and would like to cover the cost, please consider making a donation to City Club on their website at cityclubco.org. And you can make a donation to the League of Women Voters on their website at lwvdeschutes.org. You can watch a replay of this on the YouTube channel for the City Club, and you can hear an audio replay of today's forum on Friday at noon on 88.9 KPOV, High Desert Community Radio in Bend. They're streaming online at kpov.org. This is the fourth in 5 forums. Our final one will take place next Wednesday, April 29th at 5:30 p.m., featuring the Democratic candidates for the Deschutes County Commissioners. On behalf of the City Club of Central Oregon and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, we thank you for participating and watching and viewing today's forum. We do appreciate your support. We encourage you to get out and support our democracy. And most of all, please stay well and safe. Good night.